all right, ready for this? AI is still limited by the inputs you're putting. So if I'm putting in very specifically, I would like to build a fund that is structured in this way, and I want my PPM to say that, and I want you to act like an SEC attorney right now. And that is a very different opportunity zone than what somebody who's like, how do I open an LLC might ask for help, so it helps me write my employee contracts. It helps me do all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And also I feel like there's certain things that, like, look, these things are secrets on purpose.
Welcome to the Share the Wealth Show, where minority professionals can learn to escape the racial wealth gap and catapult themselves into abundance. Your host, Nicole Pendergrass, grew her net worth from being negative to multiple six figures. Join her on her investigative mission to expose secret strategies of the wealthy so we can all have the tools needed to build the life and legacy we were created to possess. Now it's time for the show.
Hey guys, so we're back again. This is the second part of the episode with today's guest. I need you, if you have not heard part one, go back to the previous episode and listen to that first, and then come back and join us here today. You need to hear the whole conversation. This is why we split into two parts. There's so many nuggets. It's so juicy. Go back and listen to the first part. One question popped up into my head that I'm like, how can we use AI to help us in our wealth building or generational plan in our journey?
Of course.
How can we do that?
Yeah. So this is an amazing question. And I haven't really talked to it with Chris yet. So this is really the first time I'm exploring it. So I wanted to say first draft.
Question. Okay. Yes.
Yeah,
Let's
it's
go.
a great question. And I appreciate it. This is an interesting format and style of your podcast too, because I feel like, it's not like, hey, here's this preset. And I love that because it allows me to engage authentically. And also, like, I don't know, my answers might change over time. So first draft.
Yeah. So everyone, this is a Share the Wealth exclusive. Share the Wealth exclusive, first time. Okay.
That's awesome. So, I've seen that people are using ChatGPT 4 to actually, anticipate and guess stock picks for them and all kinds of stuff. Listen, I'm not a trader. I don't teach trading in my class at all. I'm not against it, but I do want to name that over 90% of day traders are not profitable. So I'll leave that there. Yes. So, and again, it's just not my preferred method because what I like and what I've realized, and this is why I want to talk to you a little bit about funds too later, is that there is a way. There absolutely is a way to invest along your own investment thesis. And that is a process and a knowledge base that you need to acquire in order to actually develop, right? So if you don't know what you want, ChatGPT is never going to tell you what you want. Right. So like that's intrinsic. Like you have to understand what derives fulfillment for you. What are the things that make you happy? How do you like spending your time? That again, those are processes that, and again, like that doesn't mean that your whole life you're going to spend, oh my God, perfectly doing whatever. Like, we are human. And if we're unable, like that's something that a machine can never give us. So can it help guide us in principles and practices? Yes, absolutely. And there are certain things in the elementary steps that I think we need to understand and know in order to actually develop a roadmap. And then on that roadmap, of course, leverage AI the whole time to help you. So for example, like, it can help you by, all right, ready for this? AI is still limited by the inputs you're putting. So if I'm putting in very specifically, I would like to build a fund that is structured in this way, and I want my PPM to say that, and I want you to act like an SEC attorney right now and review my statements that go out to my LPs. And that is a very different opportunity zone than what somebody who's like, how do I open an LLC might ask for, write me a better operating agreement for my company. Help, so it helps me write my employee contracts. It helps me do all kinds of things. But the point is,
you have to be specific with the input, or it's just going to give you a general output.
Yeah. And also I feel like there's certain things that, like, look, these things are secrets on purpose. A lot of what I teach in my class, you can't really Google. And that's what I tell people. It's like, look, what you pay for isn't education. It's about transformation. So you're saving time, right? And that's like that. Those are shortcuts. Like that's what you do. So it's essentially, some people ask me like, well, what if I went and Googled something? I'm like, Totally. You absolutely can. And there are many things in this class that are things that I learned. So you probably can't Google the answers to that. And then others are relationships I built and mentorship opportunities that were presented to me and lent themselves to a different worldview. And that's what I try to expose people to. So when you're like building in that space, I don't think that you can get everything from a machine, but you can certainly enhance what you're doing with that. So again, like it's a way that you can jumpstart. That's literally why it's called the jumpstart. You can jumpstart the experience, because I say that it typically saves people, depending on where they're at, between 2 and 3 years of trial and error research.
That's great. Because even just that example that you just gave about like acting as an SEC attorney and doing, your PPM and all that stuff, like I know that language and that lingo, so I could do that, but I didn't even think of doing something like that to create like what my fund structure would be, like using AI and then looking at that and having it analyze it as a SEC. Like that's crazy. Like this is what I said. I have not used it optimally, like, and thought about all the ways with which I can use ChatGPT to kind of enhance. And then I would actually still take that document or whatever the output was and still present it to an SEC attorney and like have like a person look over, you know what I mean? So it's just like gives the good framework and saves you so much time and energy just even figuring that out. Oh my goodness. And I just did, like, I have all these ideas now. I just did like last weekend, I spent a night at a hotel so I could have like down quiet time, new atmosphere, the Think and Grow Rich, and, really put yourself in like vivid vision, all of those kind of modes where you're in a different, atmosphere and could think about like bigger plans and goals. So I really did come up with, what I think is such a bigger vision for my company, and something that, your vision has to be big enough to scare you, right? So that or otherwise it's just not big enough. And it's all about like, I know how to do almost nothing that like to get my business to the levels that I want. I am not capable in my current state of doing that. Right. So it's more like that whole thought process of the vision plus who, not how. And, putting it out there and getting the right people. And once you start putting your vision out there, you start alignment. I've already met like 2 or 3 people this week that would be perfect to help me with the overall idea, at least some piece of that. And I haven't even told them about the vision. But now, because I already am thinking about it, if I hadn't thought about that first, when I met those people, I wouldn't have been thinking about them fitting into a certain role because I wouldn't have the vision. Right. So there's just like, there's so much. And then that seemed like that was off-winded, but it's mainly because the ChatGPT is also a part of that. Like that can help me get at least the initial structure, because there's so many moving pieces to the businesses and how they kind of correspond with each other. And ChatGPT can help me with like my operating agreement. And then I can look over that and say, okay, that looks good, or no, let me tweak this or whatever. But like, I don't have to start from scratch with it. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited. Like I need to log into ChatGPT right before we get off of this call.
Yeah, right.
Like, all right, Chat.
And you know what? As you're talking, like it's just such a joy. I've been smiling so much in this episode. And the reason is that it's what an immense privilege for us to be able to like dream and build and authentically step into the possibilities. And I think, this is not to drag down, because it's not intended to be a direct contrast, but I do want to just highlight that like it ran through my mind, so many people who look like us, right? Or who are women or who are whatever, they just don't even have the opportunity or the luxury to like step into this. And again, that's not to say that is only to say that it is so powerful for us to be having a recorded conversation like this and to be demonstrating that this is possible and that there are people at the forefront doing it, and that, you sound so excited when you're talking about your goals and talking about how they can authentically scare you and take you to the next level. And that is important. That's important for your daughters. That's important for, all the kids that are, going to be watching this one day, all the adults, all the people, and I think that is so powerful, and we should absolutely be leveraging tools. And it doesn't mean that we're making humans irrelevant or obliterating our roles on the earth. Like, it doesn't have to be so cynical. We really can solve tremendous problems using ChatGPT. Imagine if you are teaching a class of special needs students and you want to differentiate education, and you're sharing, hey, listen, all right, how can I explain to all these kindergartners how to build instructions on making a PB&J or tying their shoes. And I've got some kids who learn better in this way and others who learn better in that way. Imagine if we can have AI develop a video that connects to that kid, that includes things that are relevant to them, that, makes them more alert or tunes them in a different way. Like, there are so many ways that I think, we tend to think selfishly and nervously, and that's human nature, but I don't think it has to be that way. And so it makes me really happy that I'm sure when you get off this call, you're going to be jumping into ChatGPT, and we can keep talking about it. Like, all those prompts, I'll share some of the resources too. It would be great for the audience to have some of them as well. Anyway.
Listen, I know you've been digging in, studying everything you can, listening to all the podcasts, reading all the books, even going to meetups. You basically have a degree from YouTube University, right? But you still feel stuck. You don't know how to actually implement what you've learned. You're nervous about taking the next step. So I've decided to start the Microfamily Investing Accelerator. This is a mentorship program where I personally guide you through my 5 proprietary pillars, so you can learn how to buy your first commercial multifamily property and scale while not biting off more than you can chew by focusing on 5 to 20 units. That's what I call microfamily. And so you can also get hands-on guidance from an experienced microfamily investor who's been right where you are. And so you can also create the cash flow needed to give you freedom and options to build the abundant life that you were destined to live. So I'll be limiting the first cohort because they'll have direct access to me, and I will be heavily invested in their success. If you're ready to grab 2023 by the horns, schedule a free discovery call with me today. The link is in the show notes. And now let's get back to the show.
I definitely want to put those in the show notes. This is exciting. I don't know, and I'm hoping that everybody listening thinks that this is exciting and I think this is one of those, everything's controversial. Everything can be controversial. Wealth building can be controversial because like you said, your family, and some of the people are thinking like, oh, you're chasing money, or why are you doing this, or, why are that? But like, it's not just about the money. I just, with my book club, just finished reading Think and Grow Rich. And so that was, I've read it before, but it was just a reminder. Yes. And it's all about having definiteness of purpose and having a definitive plan and having the amount of money that you want fixed in your mind, and how are you going to serve to be able to receive that money, right? And what you can do with that money, and it's all a value exchange. So you thinking about the money, I don't think wanting or like having a goal to be wealthy, like you said, is not bad, right? Because there are things, and even if you don't have altruistic, ambitions underlying, your want for wealth, it can be just to have it. It's okay to want wealth, just to have it, and just for the betterment of your lifestyle, for the betterment of your family, if you're going to help your family, if you have kids or whatever, because then you will be hiring people who are going to be helping you. You're going to be doing stuff that's helping to feed the economy. So regardless of what it is, and if there's no truly altruistic underneath, you still have the right to want more. Right. And especially, minorities and women and people who are historically like disenfranchised and not able, it's not bad to want more, and just for the sake of being able to live abundantly, because that's our birthright, right? We are supposed to be able to live that way. And yes, I have altruistic and kind of, giving back goals beneath, some of my stuff, but it doesn't have to be that way. And I think we feel bad for wanting to do things for ourselves. And that's where some controversy comes in internally with wanting to build wealth. Either we make it sound better because we're saying, oh, it's altruistic. But even if it's not altruistic, like, you should still be able to have that as a goal of building wealth. And that doesn't mean you love money, because then we have those, the biblical kind of, at least in Christian and Baptist, because I don't know your religion, but I know there is kind of like the love of money is the root of all evil, right? And then people put that like wanting money, they equate wanting money as the love of money. But I don't think that That is accurate. I mean, there's so much out there. And how did I get on this tangent? Oh,
No,
I said controversy.
Yes. No, I think this is really great. And I would even push it a step further. I would say it not only is it okay to want more, I would venture to say, why is it that you don't believe you deserve more? If there's anyone listening to this podcast who isn't investing yet, who doesn't have their LLC yet, you need to look yourself in the mirror and ask, why do I not love myself enough to be investing in a way that will continue to sustain me for the rest of my life and potentially others, right? So I think again, it's like we have the 7 pillars of health, and I'm going to walk back into our curriculum.
Oh yes, please, yes.
There's financial health, and no one of these is more important than the other. They're not in any particular order, but there's financial health, nutritional health, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and intimate. Sometimes there's not, which is social. But what I want to say about that is that, like, listen, money is a tool, and this is what we tell people in our seminars. It's a tool. If we are talking about a hammer, and you've got the hammer, and you want to nail a nail into a piece of plywood, and you're using the hammer backwards, you're using the tool wrong. You could use a hammer to build a house. You could use a hammer to smash someone's head in. And I'm sorry to be so graphic, but it's like what we're actually, the root of all evil is when people use tools to do bad things or don't employ them for the better of the world, right? And I just think, again, like we're very quick to criticize or to think or make assumptions about people we've never met, things we've never done, stuff that we don't know. And for me, on my own wealth building journey, I feel like it is inherently radical for people who typically do not have wealth to seek it. And when I go back to that, like, why do you not believe that you deserve more? I also just want to say, why don't you think that you should have a seat at the table? If you have directly experienced difficulty, strife, disenfranchisement in your life, and you understand power structures, and you understand or accept that we exist in a system that you need to shift in order to actually impact change, then why can't you be radical in that seat? Then, I don't believe in college, we talked a lot about incrementalism, and what that means is it's just like making tiny steps towards an ultimate goal. And sometimes that's used as like a way to, I would say, like slow policy, or to inauthentically step into improving people's lives or shifting or having that paradigm shift, right? But I also think that if the end goal is radical and you're starting here and you have to take the steps to get here, it doesn't automatically mean that it's some negative form of incrementalism. It just means that, yeah, you got to do some things before you get to your goal. And so for me, like, my life was completely changed by Bill and Melinda Gates. And I got a Gates Millennium Scholarship, and my story for that, and I won't even spend time on it right now, but it was so interesting because there was just like a lot happening on that process, on that journey. And like, I didn't even qualify for the scholarship when I applied, which is just like crazy. And I had people telling me, do not apply. It's a waste of your time. You'll never get it. I applied to one college and one scholarship. And for me, that changed my whole life. I was able to like leave my home where it was like super unstable. For the first time in years, I lived in a consistent place for 4 years in a row.
Wow.
Like I moved every single year of high school. I went from New York to Florida, New York to Florida. Like I lived in a very tumultuous house. At times I was sharing a twin bed with my older sister, living in my uncle's house. I lived with my grandma. I had to spend time with my dad. Like it was a stable home was not always a privilege that I had. And so for me, the Gates family not only gave me education, and basically they literally paid for everything. Like I graduated college with no loans. Like what? This was an immense privilege.
Wow.
They gave me a gift that nobody could ever take away from me, but also that I was like so humbled, and that I to this day feel deeply, deeply grateful for. And I feel like if you can impact people in that way, if you can step into that, and again, you don't have to, like, I want to honor what you were saying about, it doesn't always have to be altruistic, But
Mm.
what I do want to say is that I think by nature, we have to understand and accept that people do not derive fulfillment from money. I know what money can do for me, and I know what money will never do for me.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think about that, I don't have to make money the root of all evil. I can accept that my choices will lend themselves to the type of lifestyle that I want to live. And if that's in my purpose, and if that is to serve others or to help build or to correct what I think are serious issues in society, then I have to authentically step into that. And I can't just be outside with a sign protesting, though that's important. I have to actually have a seat at the table and impact people in that, at that scale or at that level.
Exactly.
So anyway, and also rich people will surprise you, you know?
Yeah, and no, I don't think that rich people are bad. And I think that is a framework that poor people or people who don't have that wealth tell themselves to make themselves feel better about not having that wealth, especially when they don't see a path to that, right? But then if you have those negative, and I talked about this somewhere else, and I'm not sure where, but if you have negative thoughts about wealth or people who are wealthy, and you think of yourself as a good person, then you will subconsciously never allow yourself to build wealth, because being a good person and if being wealthy is being bad, those two things are in constant opposition and conflict. You will never be able to get to that level because your subconscious will always pull you back. Your subconscious will always act in a way against you because it's going to make you feel like, oh, if I get money, I'm going to be one of the bad people and I'm good. So I'm not I can't but that's the thing. In order to affect change, in order to affect policy change, in order to really make anything happen, that's especially if it's going against the current, like if it's against the status quo, if it's anything that like these policies have been enacted for how many years and decades and centuries, right? They've changed a little bit here and there, but we know where they're rooted in. And in order to change something that's going against current, you need money. Money talks. Like money is the way that you can affect change. And that's the only thing. Like if you want social change, if you want environmental change, if you want change, like health policy change, any of those things, like you said, you have to have a seat at the table. And most of the people who have a seat at the table have money. They bought their seat at the table. And so however you have to do that is bigger.
I agree completely. And then the other thing, just the reason that I mentioned the pillars of health, right, was because the people that you're referring to, right, sometimes, there's with all these pillars, would you invest in or shift your attitudes around your nutrition, around your physical health? Would you invest in therapy for your mental health and your emotional health? So if all of those things are true and you're willing to do that and you're pouring money, time, energy, effort, you're reading about it, you're focused on it, and you think that shifting your mindset, your emotional well-being is important, right? Like maybe you're tired of eating processed food, or maybe you're tired of every time you walk up the stairs, you're like breathing really heavy. You know what I mean? Like these are all issues that are super prevalent in all the communities I grew up in. My boyfriend, if you ask him about his story, he'll always start by saying that he felt, he starts his story by explaining that his family suffers from diabetes and obesity and all these things. And so it's like, if we know that and we want to make those changes, then why are we looking at that so differently than financial health? Like they are all important components of your general well-being. And if you love yourself and you're striving to improve, then your finances can help you do that, right? And I just think that, if you're making enough money to be able to afford better food, then why not? If you can afford therapy, if you can take a day off to have a mental health day or to have a dream envisioning day, like what might be different about your life, So anyway, I just think we have to stay very open to it. And it's been awesome to have this conversation with you because you're very passionate about it, and I can tell you really care. And everybody who listens to what you have to offer, it stands to benefit a lot, and they stand to lose if they don't, So I think this is very powerful.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate that. And I definitely can't wait to continue to build with you and Chris and see where this goes, especially because we're so close proximity wise. But yeah, so we've been talking forever, and I really honestly could keep talking to you even longer. Oh, I mean more. But okay, I'm about to transition into the final questions that I ask every guest. But first, one other question that I want to ask is, we talked about a lot today, and especially around building wealth and the mindset and the things that you need, and whether you have an LLC or all these other things. If someone listening to this wants to take that first step into building wealth, especially building generational wealth, or making that way, that pathway, so they can have that seat at the table, what's the first thing that they should do? The most important, just in your opinion. Everyone's going to have, a varying opinions on what that is. And I know it's very hard to dial into one thing, but what's the first step you think is probably the most impactful to getting someone on the journey?
So I want to answer this in two different ways. One, because I like to add value and give actionable steps. I don't want somebody to listen and be like, oh, come on, like that answer sucked. But I think this is an important answer to start with. So I'm going to do that.
Yes.
I'm going to answer the way I want to answer first, and then I'm going to give some
yes, I want steps. Yes.
So with my philosophical answer here, I think the most important thing, and this is why we do qualifications before people enroll in the course, is that you have to know what you want. Because a lot of people you talk to, they don't know what they want. And so if you do not know what you want, then you are not prepared to embark on this generational wealth journey. And I think that that's true for a lot of different things, right? Like, you have to know what state of mind you want to step into. You want to know what your physical body should feel like or look like. You have to know what, your gut health should feel like. All of these different things that you might step into or transition to improve yourself. It really stems with you and how your experiences have informed where you're at now, and then also where you might be in the future. And so digging deeply into, am I living in the zip code that matches what I want and what I feel like is important to me right now? Am I surrounded by the community that I want to be? Am I, so having all these internal questions, I think, is the very first step. Now, that's maybe the annoying answer. People are probably waiting for me to answer with the actionable stuff. Listen, with the actionable stuff, there's a lot we can do here. So I consider what I teach more of financial literacy, 2 or 301. So it's not 101. If you do not have 101, you got to start there. So 101 is budgeting, making sure that you understand the difference between investing and saving, right? I think a lot of people save their money and they squirrel it away. That is not the strategy. I used to do that, and I'm so glad I no longer do that. But that's an important piece too. When it comes to more 101 stuff, I think shifting your relationship to money, not having anxiety when you look at your bank account, or, overjoy, right? Not having too much of an emotional attachment to money, I think is really important. Now, when it comes to the 201 and the people who are a little bit more advanced and they're ready for the generational wealth building steps, I would say develop your investment thesis. So use ChatGPT if you want to investigate what that is, and maybe develop an outline for an investment thesis, and then use that to guide your own answers. I don't know.
Yeah.
Ask me prompting questions to help me get to an investment thesis. I think understanding what's going to make you feel good over time and committing that energy with your dollar is going to be important. Because look, I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't matter how much money I make. If I'm making it off of something that doesn't align with me, I'm never going to feel good about it, and that isn't we all look, we've got devices in our hands that are, the chips in these are getting mined by children overseas, right? And those are all things that we have to accept about our reality. And I say that to say that when we are thinking about this journey and the impact that we make, we have to feel secure in the steps that we take towards those. And so build your investment thesis. That's the first step, because as you are understanding, okay, I care about climate change, I care about this, you really have to believe that you can impact in those spaces. So for me, as I've stepped into real estate, for example, I always entertain conversations about, okay, tiny home nation with my sister and her girlfriend, right? Who think that that's the way people should live, and that we should, have environments that just have more nature and all kind, whatever. So that's their thing. When I think about, okay, my impact on women's health, or on climate change or on anything else. It's like, okay, how are my, not just day-to-day actions, but how's my overall trajectory lending itself to that? And again, it's not foolproof. Like sometimes you do have to, again, incrementalism, like on the way to that ultimate goal, you're participating in a system that you might not like, but just open yourself to capitalism and understand it for what it is, right? Recognize that solving problems is the best way to step into entrepreneurship and lean into that. So I'm not saying that you have to be an entrepreneur, but I do think that if you want to take building wealth seriously and you want to build for a legacy, you do need to employ the structures and the assets that business owners and wealthy people employ. So like, don't be afraid of an LLC. And we didn't get to finish talking about this with the course, but I don't like teach that part. I do more of like the high level. All right, like here's what it is, but our external partner, because with the class, you get a complimentary LLC and you get accountability calls. So
Nice.
you pay for like the core curriculum, and then those are extra pieces that I wrap in there because I think they're important, like completion steps, if that makes sense. So then we hop on the phone for the months after, and I'm saying like, hey, how's it going? Did you finish your destination analysis? Like, how did you open your LLC? Have you made that appointment yet? You know, what's the next step? Whatever. So anyway, neither here nor there, but the point is, I would say that those are the next steps. If you haven't done that, do it. For the extra higher level people, I would say start to learn about funds. Start to step into the fund world. I think many people believe that you have to have a certain degree or level of experience or amount of wealth or whatever to build in the fund space. Like you can make a tiny fund. You can make a $50,000 fund. You can make a $10 million fund. You can make a $200 million fund. I've met people directly shaking my hand who are telling me straight to my face, Savannah, I'm building $1 billion fund. So these are people of color. Amazing, right? Like, so what is the impact that they're doing on that scale? It's not for everybody, but if you are past kind of like those more early steps, start to think about how you can leverage a fund, which protects you better than any syndication model out there, to really continue to grow your wealth and to serve other people. Because I think that's a really great way that you can start helping other people invest and provide them that with returns that are in alignment with your own thesis and potentially theirs. I'll stop there.
Nice. I love it. See, and there's like, I'm just saying there's so much, because I really wanted to actually even go in more on your below the waist health, your vagina health.
I have more time, but if you don't, like, that's totally fine. And you know what I mean?
You know what the heck? Let's go for it.
Okay, guys, don't kill me, but I'm going to have to cut this episode short. This is too juicy. So stay tuned for the next episode that airs, and you can hear the rest of our conversation.
Did you love this episode of Share the Wealth Show? Be sure to connect with Nicole by following her on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook. If you picked up any of the gems that were dropped by today's guest, make sure you not only put them in your bag, but if you know of someone who would benefit from this information, don't keep it to yourself. Share the wealth and make sure to leave us a rating and review. We'll see you for next week's episode. Subscribe so you'll be notified.